So, I've taught a lot of kindergarten students, a lot of elementary students, but I also have a lot of experience teaching adult students as well. And one of the things I find intermediate students have a problem with, adult or otherwise, is with pronunciation. At that point they generally know enough vocabulary, their grammar is pretty good, but they still have difficulty being understood because of their pronunciation. And a lot of that is due to phonetic substitution, substituting phonemes from their native language for English phonemes. I'm learning Korean, and that gives me a unique perspective of understanding the differences between English and Korean and the problems that my students encounter. Even more so than a Gaipo teacher. At that point, if they speak English and Korean almost natively, equally, they kind of take a lot of the differences for granted, and they don't understand the problems that their students are encountering. So for example, I'm going to talk today about the nyut phoneme, okay? For example, in Hanguk. Students invariably substitute nyut for English n. And it's really disappointing to me that more teachers don't correct this from the very beginning. All right? And the problem is, here's some teeth, here's a tongue. The problem is, nyut is pronounced as a terminal sound. It becomes a terminal sound because you're biting your tongue as you say it. Hanguk. Hanguk. Whereas English n, the tongue is kind of rolled up behind the tooth, the top tooth. And that's what I talk about when I speak of phonetic mechanics. Okay, this is a methodology that I'm continually developing and improving upon. I'm teaching the students how to physically form the phonemes so they're not substituting their native sounds for English sounds. And this is very important because even though 90% of the time you can get away with substituting nyut for n, 10% of the time it results in misunderstandings to the extent where the speaker is being misunderstood as saying the opposite of what is intended. For example, can and can't, two very different meanings there, all right? But if you substitute nyut for n, this becomes a terminal sound. It terminates here, and the speaker isn't able to recuperate and pronounce the T properly. So, for example, can, canned, okay? They sound almost exactly the same. A native speaker is not going to be able to understand the SL speaker. Very important to teach them how to physically pronounce the N, so they're not relying on substitutions, so they're not being misunderstood as saying the opposite of what is intended. For Arabic speakers, they invariably substitute B for P. There's no P phoneme in Arabic. Okay? So that's what I speak of when I talk about teaching phonetic mechanics. Very important, especially for adult and intermediate students, to learn this so that they're not misunderstood, so that they can put their vocabulary and their grammar to use and not be misunderstood or being understood as saying the opposite of what was actually intended. Thank you.